Hello everyone. We continue to explore Excel functions. And now it's time for VLOOKUP. So, the essence of the VLOOKUP function is that it finds values in one table and transfers them to another. The search principle is quite simple and can be compared to finding the right address in a directory or, for example, dishes from a restaurant menu. Let's say you want to know the price of chocolate lava cake. To do this, you start browsing the menu from top to bottom until you find this cake. Once the task is completed, you stop at that row and shift your attention slightly to the right to find out its price. The VLOOKUP function works on the same principle and is also called vertical lookup. Let's now find out the total order amount and fill in this table, but we won't search for prices ourselves, let the program do it for us. And I enter the VLOOKUP function. The first argument of the function is the value you are looking for. I specify cell C5. I put a comma and move on to the second argument. Here, you need to select the search table. I should note that VLOOKUP looks for the value only in the leftmost column of the table, so if it had one more column to the left, I would have selected not the entire table, but only the part where the column in which the search will be performed is the first column of the table. I make the reference to the specified range absolute, so that it does not shift down when copying the formula to other cells. Well, as the third argument, you need to specify the column from which you want to take the value and pull it into the price cell. In this case, we should specify the column number from the selected range, not the worksheet. Therefore, the first column is considered as number 1, and the second column as number 2. And in our case, we need to specify the second column, as the price is located in it. Next, in the last argument, we are offered to choose the search type. If we specify true or put the number 1, the search for matches will be approximate. But if we choose false or simply put 0, we thereby tell the program that the search for matches should be exact. I specify 0 because I need an exact match now. As for the other option, we will cover it in the same lesson, but a little later. I click OK and do autofill. This way, we saved time and filled in the prices with minimal effort. However, I want to draw your attention to the peculiarity of the VLOOKUP function. The fact is that, looking through the lines from top to bottom, it stops at the closest exact match. This means that if there are several identical values in the list, then the function will select the value that first appears in list. Therefore, use VLOOKUP only in those tables where the column for matching contains cells with different values. Any duplicates may be needed only for certain specific situations. I hope this is clear. Now let's move on. In front of you is a small table that we will fill in now. And a little below is the database. It is from this database that we will pull the necessary values into our table using the VLOOKUP function. Of course, you can fill in the cells one by one. That is, first find the position, then the experience, phone number, and so on. But the problem is that we need to pull data from different columns, so we will have to enter the formula individually for each cell. We cannot simply copy it and get the correct result as we just did in the previous table. However, there is still a solution. Now I will show you how with just one formula, you can fill in all the empty cells of this table. And the array formula will help us with this. I select the range with empty cells, enter an equal sign, and enter the VLOOKUP function. Next, I add the searched value. In our case, it is the first and last name from cell D2. Then I put a comma and select the range of the database table. I put another comma and open a brace. Notice that the bracket is curly. So, as you remember, the third argument of the VLOOKUP function is the column number from which the value will be pulled. In the database table, the column position is the second column of the selected range. Experience is the third, phone is the fourth, gender is the fifth, and city is the sixth. Since we are going to pull the necessary values from all these columns at once, then, of course, in the formula, we need to specify each of them. I list the column numbers, separating them with semicolons, and close the brace. This argument represents an array of constants, and it must be enclosed in curly braces for the Excel program to correctly recognize our command. Now I put a comma and specify 0 as the fourth argument, so that the function performs an exact match search. In fact, we have given the Excel program a command to scan the database from top to bottom and find a person named Stephen Lewis in the leftmost column. In case of an exact match, it will scan that entire row, moving to other columns starting from the second one and ending with the sixth one, and pull the values of their cells into the table located above. All that's left is to complete entering the formula, and for that, I will hold down the Ctrl plus Shift plus Enter key combination. If this is not done, the result will be incorrect. This key combination tells the program that we want to apply an array formula. Hence, the combination Ctrl plus Shift plus Enter in this case is mandatory. You can recognize an array formula by the presence of curly braces. One is at the very beginning of the formula, and the other at the end. They are automatically inserted after pressing this key combination. And in each cell that has been filled, the formula looks absolutely identical. Now, I can select any surname from the database, and all the other information about that employee will be automatically pulled in. By the way, you might be wondering why I listed the columns in curly braces with a semicolon instead of the usual delimiter, the comma. The thing is, a semicolon is used in this case to fill rows. For example, I will now create the same table but transpose it horizontally. I copy the formula into it and press Ctrl plus Shift plus Enter. As a result, all the cells are filled with the same values, which means there is an error in the formula. Since in this table the cells are filled not by rows, but by columns, the array constants need to be listed with a comma. Therefore, I go back to the formula and change all the semicolons to commas. Now I press Ctrl plus Shift plus Enter, and the formula pulls the correct values. I understand that with such a lot of information, things might be getting a little confusing. Don't worry, we will have a separate lesson dedicated to array formulas, where we will go through everything in detail and look at various examples of their use. You might also have a question about how this drop-down list with the employees' surnames appeared. I prepared it in advance. It is quite easy to create, and in one of the lessons, I will show you how it is done. But right now, we need to focus on the subject of the current lesson, and therefore I will move on to the next table. It's time to understand how the VLOOKUP function works when choosing an approximate match. So, on the left, there is a table where you need to fill in the discount column. The discount is determined individually for each customer based on the amount of their order. The table on the right indicates the conditions for granting discounts. For example, if the customer's order amount falls in the range of $11,000 to $15,000, then a discount of 2% will be provided on their next purchase. Accordingly, the first customer will receive 2% and the second one will be left without a discount, as the amount of his order does not meet the minimum conditions and is $10,514, whereas it should have been at least $11,000. Well, as you might have guessed, we will solve this task not manually, but using the VLOOKUP function. First, we need to create an additional column for the match search. Since these cells contain too much data for Excel to handle, we need to simplify the task for it. For this, I will use an additional column, and I will enter only the lower boundary of the search into it. That is, I put 0 in the first cell, 11,000 in the second, and so on. Now is the perfect time to recall Flash Fill. I press Ctrl plus E. And the rest of the data is pulled automatically according to the given pattern. Okay, now I enter the VLOOKUP function. The value to look for will be the order sum. Next, I select the entire range with the promotion conditions including the additional column. It is in this column that the match search will be conducted. That's why I placed it on the left. Because the VLOOKUP function performs the search in the leftmost column. I am specifically repeating certain points several times to make it easier for you to remember them, and yes, I definitely make the reference to the range absolute. So, the next argument of the function is the column number from which to pull the value. Since we are looking for the discount, I specify the column with the discount. In the selected range, this column is number 3. So I enter 3. As for the last argument, this time I choose an approximate match by putting the number 1 or by clicking on the word true twice. Done. Now let me explain to you how the VLOOKUP function works with an approximate match. So, let's consider the first customer as an example. We asked the program to find the number 12,000 in column G. If an exact match had been specified as the last argument, the formula would have given us an error because this number is not present in the specified column. However, an approximate match allows us to solve the task. The program starts searching for the number 12,000 from top to bottom in column G. And as soon as it reaches the value of 16,000, which exceeds our target value, according to the algorithm of the VLOOKUP function, Excel stops at the nearest smaller number, taking a step back to the cell with the value of 11,000 and pulls the value from the third column of that same row, which is 2%. Or, for example, in the case of cell D14, where the order amount is $68,082, Excel also performs a search in column G. Not finding a corresponding value, it stops at the nearest smaller value, which is 36,000 and corresponds to a 20% discount. The task is completed, and the additional column can be deleted. Immediately after deleting it, an error appears in the discount column, which is not surprising since the formula has lost part of the data required for calculation. I intentionally did this to show you the consequences of mishandling data in interrelated cells. But how can we remove this column and still retain the calculation results? I press Ctrl+Z to undo the last action. So, firstly, instead of deleting it, we can hide it. To do this, I move the cursor to the column G letter designation and right-click. From the drop-down menu, I choose the Hide command. Now the extra column is invisible, and the formula is intact. If desired, the hidden column can be displayed again by double-clicking on the border between columns F and H. Additionally, I can change the font color to white, and then the values will become invisible. Great. Well, another option is to copy the cells from the discount column and paste them in the same place, selecting the Values Paste option. Then I simply delete the additional column, without any consequences for the table. Because there are no more formulas in the discount column, only values remain. Therefore, there is no longer any connection. This lesson is coming to an end. Please give a like if you enjoyed the lesson and subscribe to the channel to not miss new videos. By following the link in the description and the first pinned comment, you can provide financial support to the channel, as all the lessons are completely free. I wish you success in your learning. Goodbye.